Today, we're going to tackle a huge concept in military thinking called operational art. Now, here's the thing. It's notoriously tricky to pin down. It's kind of that invisible magic that connects a country's big picture strategy with the actual tactics soldiers use on the ground. So how do you get good at something you can't even clearly define? Well, that's the puzzle we're digging into.
So let's just start with a big question, one that military thinkers have been wrestling with forever. Is there some kind of perfect scientific formula for winning a war? Can you treat it like a game of chess where if you're smart enough, you can just calculate all the right moves and guarantee a win? Or is it something way, way messier? This question right here is at the absolute heart of our whole conversation.
And that brings us right back to operational art. The source material for this explainer calls it something that just defies a single definition. A great way to think about it comes from a historian like Yuval Noah Harari. He'd probably call it a collective imagination. It isn't a physical rulebook you can hold, but it's real because a whole group of people, in this case military leaders, all implicitly agree on what it is. It's built by the group, a shared way of seeing and making sense of the chaos.
Okay, so what is this thing? It's really, really important to get that we are not looking for a simple instruction manual. Operational art isn't about following a checklist from A to B to C. It's about how an entire organization thinks, how it adapts on the fly, and how it creates opportunities out of pure chaos.
And here is the crucial distinction. We're not talking about a thing you do, we're talking about a way you know. And to really wrap our heads around that, we've got to take a quick look at a few different ways of thinking about knowledge itself, because these big ideas have totally shaped how military leaders have tried to master the art of war. For a long, long time, especially kicking off during the Enlightenment, the big dream was to find certainty. The ultimate goal was to discover that perfect formula, to take the messy, bloody, unpredictable business of war and make it rational, logical, and, well, scientific. And this whole search for certainty really went down two mean roads. On one side, you had the rationalists. They believed that if you just used enough pure reason and logic, you could figure out the perfect universal laws of warfare. On the other side, you had the empiricists, who were like, hold on, let's just study a bunch of past wars, see what actually worked, and copy those best practices. See what's happening? Both are trying to nail down fixed rules for a world that refuses to sit still. But what happens when you take that perfect, logical rulebook out onto a real battlefield and it just completely falls apart? This is where a really powerful new way of thinking shows up on the scene: pragmatism. And it's a philosophy that was basically born from getting punched in the face by reality.
And you can't find a better example of this than T.E. Lawrence. Yep, Lawrence of Arabia. This quote just nails the frustration. He's in the middle of the Arab Revolt, and all the classic European military theories he was taught are totally useless. He started seeing the official doctrine as just a ritual, and the generals who preached it as priests who were just blindly following a faith that had nothing to do with what was happening in the desert right in front of him.
Lawrence's experience is the perfect picture of pragmatism. See, a pragmatist doesn't ask, is this theory true in some grand universal sense? Nope. They ask, does this idea work right here, right now, in this mess? For them, truth isn't some abstract ideal. Truth is what works. It's functionality. It's success. If an idea helps you win, then it's true enough for today. And that, right there, was a total game changer.
But the attack on certainty didn't stop there. Oh no. The next wave, the postmodern challenge, took things even further. It started questioning not just our answers, but the very way we ask our questions in the first place. So a philosopher named Michel Foucault came along and argued that the way we even organize knowledge isn't set in stone. He pointed out these great discontinuities, these huge moments in history where our whole operating system for thinking just changed. What that means is that the things we take for granted as rational or true aren't timeless facts. They're actually a product of our specific moment in history.
This brings us to a bedrock idea of postmodern thought, and Jean-François Lyotard sums it up perfectly here. So, what on earth is a meta-narrative? It's just a fancy word for a big, grand story that claims to explain everything. You know the ones, the inevitable march of human progress or the ultimate triumph of science and reason. Postmodernism is basically a healthy dose of skepticism toward any single story that claims it has all the answers for everyone, everywhere.
So what does all this philosophy have to do with war? Well, a postmodern view of operational art means you throw out the idea that there's one single, correct way to fight. It means you understand that what works in one culture or context might totally fail in another. And maybe most importantly, it means you have to be constantly rebuilding your ideas,
always ready to toss out old models that aren't working and design new ones. Modern military thinkers like Pepe the Peron, Nave, and Zweibelson are really leading the charge on this much more fluid, adaptable approach. Okay, so after that little trip through philosophy and military history, where does that leave us? It seems we've moved from this desperate search for certainty, for fixed rules, to something a lot more dynamic. The goal isn't about finding the perfect answer anymore. It's about learning how to fight and win inside the messiness of reality.
And this leads to the final and I think most brilliant shift in thinking. In the complex conflicts we see today, the goal is not to solve the problem, as if it's some math equation you can just find the answer to. But as Pateri Blomvall, the author of our source material, puts it so well, the real aim is to shape the uncertainty. Just think about that for a second. You can't get rid of uncertainty. It's always going to be there. But you can influence it. You can nudge it. You can manage it. You can create favorable conditions within it. It's like being a sailor. You can't stop the storm, but a master sailor knows how to work with the wind and the waves to get where they need to go.
And that leaves us with one last powerful question that goes way beyond the battlefield. In our own lives, in business, in society, we are all facing just overwhelming uncertainty. The real art, it seems, isn't about finding some magic bullet that makes all the complexity disappear. The real art is learning how to shape it. So the question for all of us is, how do we get better at doing that?